Professor Dr. Asha Kanwar, President, Commonwealth of Learning, Vancouver, Canada. Professor Dr. Zoraini Binti Abbas, Acting Vice Chancellor, Wawasan Open University, as well as Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Educational Technology. Professor Dr. David Ngor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Outreach. Members of the Board of Governors, as well as former Vice Chancellors of Wawasan Open University, Emeritus Professor Dr. Wong Tat Meng, as well as Professor Dr. Ho Sin Chai. They are my former bosses. I would have to introduce them. I would want to. It's an honor for me. Members of the Board of Directors, delegates from 9 Commonwealth countries. We have representatives from 9 Commonwealth countries representing different regions of the Commonwealth here. They are here for a meeting, and they are also joining us in this public lecture. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon, and welcome to WOU Public Lecture Series. Now, before I go any further, I would need your cooperation in having your mobile phones silenced. Thank you. A little brief on the guest of speaker for this afternoon. Professor Dr. Asha Kanwar, one of the world's leading advocates of learning for sustainable development, is also the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Commonwealth of Learning, Vancouver, Canada. Prior to joining Commonwealth of Learning, Professor Asha served briefly at UNESCO's Regional Office for Education in Africa, where she came after a distinguished career at the Indira Gandhi National Open University, India. Professor Asha has over 35 years of experience in teaching, research, and administration. She has written, edited a dozen books, and published numerous papers and articles. Her speeches and presentations are available at www.col.org. She is a recipient of several awards and fellowships. Professor Asha received the International Council for Open and Distance Education, ICDE, Prize of Excellence, and the Meritorious Service Award for Outstanding Contributions in Open and Distance Education from the Asian Association of Open Universities. She has been conferred 6 honorary doctorates from the Vadman Mahivir Open University, K.K. Handiki State Open University, India, the Open University, UK, the Open University of Sri Lanka, the University of Swaziland, and in 2016, WOU had the honor of conferring an honorary doctorate to Prof. Asha. And I'm sure you're not here to listen to me talk. So without further delay, let us welcome Professor Dr. Asha Kanwar to present her views on learning in the era of digital transformation. Prof.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a very distinguished audience, and rather than leave anyone out, I would like to do what they do in Nigeria. Please consider all protocols observed. And we have a delegation from Nigeria right here, and they know what I'm talking about. So let me just begin by saying what a great pleasure it is to be back at Wawasan. And I'm very grateful to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Zoraini, and her team for the kind invitation. My topic today is learning in an age of digital transformation. And I've prepared this presentation with my colleague, Dr. Balaji. Let me introduce my organization, the Commonwealth of Learning, or COL, which some of you are familiar with, but not everyone. COL is an intergovernmental organization established by Commonwealth heads of government 30 years ago, with headquarters in Metro Vancouver, and we also have a regional office for Asia in Delhi. Our mission is to help Commonwealth member states and institutions like yours to use technologies for expanding access to education and training. COL believes that learning is the key to sustainable development. Learning must lead to opportunities for economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental conservation. We work in 53 member states across the world. You can see from the Caribbean, the little dots, that's actually 12 countries. And then to Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, where again we have 11 countries. COL shares very close links with Vawasan Open University. The founding Vice Chancellor, Tansri Gajaraj Dhanarajan, was the president and CEO of COL for 9 years, during which time he laid the solid foundations of what is now a highly respected organization. His successor, Dato Tat Meng Wong, who's also Professor Emeritus, is an honorary COL fellow in recognition for his outstanding contributions to promoting open and distance learning around the world. I too am proud to be an alumnus of Vawasan, having been conferred, as Prakash told you, an honorary doctorate, of which I'm very proud, 2 years ago. In this presentation, I will first review the context of education today, and then look at technology trends in tertiary education. I will then highlight some of the innovations in technology in the last 10 years and the more recent developments that are just beginning to emerge. Finally, I will look at the major opportunities that they present and the way forward to transform learning in an age of uncertainty. And I think this is very timely because Prof. Zuraini told me that Vawasan is now going through a period of transformation. So some of the ideas here might actually help in that process. But first, the context. In the decade between 2005 and 2015, we have seen a steady rise in gross enrollment ratios in tertiary education, starting from 25% to now a global average of over 35%, which means people in the relevant age group, 35% of them have access to tertiary education. There has been an even faster increase in the gross enrollment ratios of tertiary education in East and Southeast Asia in the decade since 2006. The gross enrollment ratio is in the region is 43%, which is substantially higher than the global average, which we just saw of 35%, and the demand continues to grow. Since the 1990s, more women than men complete tertiary education in most countries. This is interesting, it's a welcome development. According to recent data, there were more female than male graduates in higher education in 3/4 of the 124 countries surveyed. But despite this, women are less likely to continue to higher levels and research. Globally, women outnumber men at the level of bachelor's degree. However, in terms of participation in research and teaching positions in higher education, their share is still substantially less than that of men. Higher levels of education usually translate into better employment opportunities and higher earnings. On an average, across OECD countries, which is the club of rich countries, those with a master's, doctoral, or equivalent degree earn twice as much as those with simply a BA or lower qualifications. Convinced that higher education leads to higher earnings and social mobility, policymakers have invested quite highly in this sector. Both developed and developing countries such as South Korea, Chile, and UK have very high gross enrollment ratios, and the number of people with degrees continues to grow worldwide. But as Andreas Schleicher of OECD concludes, countries have skill shortages, not degree shortages. In countries you can see as far apart as Japan and Israel, more than 50% employers report having difficulty filling jobs with people with the right skills. So we might have a degree, but we don't fit the jobs which the market requires. And multiple surveys in 2016 indicated that the demand for soft skills, such as critical thinking, communication, and leadership, were what employers were looking for. We have been talking about these as 21st century skills for nearly 2 decades now. But to what extent have we integrated these into our curricula? Have we harnessed the potential of technologies to do this? And we all know the answer to that. Let us now look at technology trends and how they have related to changes in education over the years. Today we speak of the 4th industrial revolution, right from the first with the steam engine to the 4th with robotics. What has been the impact of these 4 revolutions on education? In the first industrial revolution, when the steam engine was invented, higher education made a transition from being elite to one which anyone could aspire to. People could come to cities, they could go to universities. The second industrial revolution was marked by the assembly line and mass production, when it became possible to produce self-instructional booklets and offer correspondence courses. The rise of the computer and internet in the third revolution led to the rise of distance learning and open universities. And today, in the 4th revolution, marked by artificial intelligence and robotics, we have OER, MOOCs, micro-credentials. The recent Horizon report finds that institutions will use analytic technologies in the short term. Wawa-san is already using learning analytics, while adaptive learning and artificial intelligence will be adopted in the medium term. Mixed reality and robotics will impact education in the long term. Another important trend that has strong implications for learning, especially in Asia, is the rapid rise of messaging. WhatsApp and WeChat have billions of users. This is largely because of the increase in the number of smartphones in developing countries. The graph here shows that today there is more traffic due to messaging apps than social networks. So I think Facebook, etc., is being superseded and younger people are going more for messaging apps. Because of this, messaging-based learning management platforms will have a faster uptake in the developing world, thereby reducing costs of education and training. Technology will also have a great impact on the future of jobs. And as an Oxford University study found, 47% of today's jobs could be automated in the next 20 years. Developments in artificial intelligence and robotics will result in changes that we may not even be able to imagine today. Automation will have an even bigger impact in developing countries which provide human labor. But contrary to this, the recent McKinsey report finds that automation will be greater in the developed world. They estimate that about 25% of jobs will be automated in OECD countries, about 10 to 15% in middle-income countries. And the loss of jobs will be severe in the population aged 45% and above. So people of our generation and younger generations are going to be jobless soon, according to these reports. So are we prepared for these eventualities? Now look at this Gartner hype cycle shows how technology you look at this from that side, how technology moves from an initial phase of innovation to very high and inflated expectations, which often cannot be fulfilled, leading to a phase of disillusionment before maturing and becoming adopted for mainstream purposes. The rise of MOOCs is a good example of this, and of how they moved from an innovation in 2008 to a situation when the international press declared 2012 as the year of the MOOC. Then there was a little decline, but today the dust is settling down and MOOCs are being integrated productively into mainstream higher education institutions. And artificial intelligence is now going up this slope of enlightenment towards mainstreaming and serious uptake. However, if we review developments over the last 10 years, we find that many innovations driven by technology have not been adopted at the speed and scale at which they emerged. The pace of adoption has been remarkably slow in education. So let's look at some of the innovations and their implications for tertiary education. I'm just looking at 4 of these. MOOCs with their global reach are disrupting the traditional classroom lecture. Blockchain has the potential to challenge the authority of accreditation bodies. Micro-credentials call into question the relevance of full degrees, and OER are disrupting business models built on intellectual property rights. MOOCs platforms allow us to offer free online courses to thousands of students around the world. MOOCs are an important solution to 3 key challenges in the current education system. 1, that it's too rigid. 2, it's highly expensive. And 3, it takes a lot of time to complete, and our young people are really impatient. They don't have 3 and 4 years to invest in the kinds of degrees we offer. Top universities have taken the lead in offering MOOCs to a world deprived of quality education at a low cost. MOOCs are opening up education as never before. Universities have so far operated largely within national or regional jurisdictions. With the MOOC platform, the whole world becomes a connected classroom. Let's look at the second one. Blockchain is a major development in the area of financial technology and is in effect an open source online register. A learner can have a distinct, persistent identity in this space. An agency that imparts learning can track progress and add scores, making the entire set of records a block. It is important to note that the records once put on the block cannot be modified at all. Many such blocks can be chained together, and a prospective employer could verify directly the claims about learning achievements rather than going through middlemen. This diagram, created at the Knowledge Media Institute of the Open University UK, shows how different stakeholders, including the students, participate in maintaining the blockchain. The student acquires the profile. Institutions add credit and status information. Accreditors determine qualifications, while the employer can verify the credentials. Blockchain will challenge paper credentials and paper certificates that are the norm today. Instead of the manual authentication of portfolios, institutions will be able to carry out this process online. The verification can be carried out online, and this will make it difficult for digital diploma mills to thrive. It's already being done by MIT for their MicroMasters program, so it's beginning to be mainstreamed into higher education. Open educational resources, or OER, are a fairly new dimension of openness. Now there are millions of pages of open content available on the web. How can we benefit from this free quality resource? In an institution in the US, the use of open textbooks has resulted in savings of $2,500 per student per year. In Canada, 40 institutions in the province of British Columbia have saved over $9 million through the use of OER. Traditionally, learners have had to bear the high costs of textbooks. In the future, where lifelong learning will be the norm, how can we use OER to reduce the costs of skilling and reskilling our learners? So can these developments in technology help us make our learners more employable? A study of a Coursera MOOC platform published in Harvard Business Review indicates that MOOCs provide many tangible and intangible benefits. For example, 26% who had completed MOOCs found a new job, 9% started their own business, and 62% improved their skills in current job roles. So I think there is some benefit to be had by participating in these MOOCs. Let us now look at emerging trends in technology which relate mainly to artificial intelligence and virtual reality. What are the implications for tertiary education? I'll just give you some examples which could suggest future directions. MOOCs and the interaction of hundreds of thousands of students results in large masses of data. The rise of big data is vitally important for the functioning of many services such as banking, airlines, etc. In learning, big data helps us to identify struggling learners, even within large groups of thousands, and to design appropriate remedial measures to help them succeed. The graph here is from a paper published by a group in Harvard and MIT. This group has used data from a MOOC in 2012 that had over 100,000 students. And one very interesting finding was that they found a correlation between the number of chapters accessed and the performance. So students who had engaged much more substantially with the course actually had better outcomes. Now, big data drives artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? It's just a broad set of computing technologies. A more specific set is machine learning, which is a combination of big data and algorithms. This is the technology behind self-driving cars, which are already a reality today. Deep learning is a particular technique of artificial intelligence and is used to draw complex inferences and is already being used in law, finance, etc. So as you can see, big data and cloud computing, the higher power of computers, etc., are critical for AI-based services. So let us look at some of the AI-based services that we are familiar with. We use spam filters in our email as a matter of course. We are used to this. Did we know we are using artificial intelligence? Maybe not. Tagging faces on Facebook is again very commonplace. That's again driven by artificial intelligence. The Google Translate online service is another example of AI use. Uber can tell us the exact time of arrival of travel with great accuracy, and sometimes the personalized suggestions in Amazon seem quite magical because they seem so, geared to our own preferences. So these are things which we are used to in daily life. AI can aggregate millions of news items to produce credible news feeds. we've all heard of Reuters, the well-known international wire service, which has built and deployed Tracer, an AI service which can detect news faster than an army of news professionals. It's also good at detecting and explaining unexpected events well before trained news professionals can, and I wonder if Tracer can predict the outcome of the elections tomorrow. But there's also a flip side. You know, when technology becomes so powerful, it can, in the wrong hands, do anything. If used unethically, AI can also be harnessed to generate fake news. There is well-meaning popular software, such as Adobe Voco. It can mimic a person's voice. But if it goes in the wrong hands, it can make that voice utter words that were never said, according to a BBC report. A writer in Forbes magazine recounts how engineers from Pindrop, an AI company, pulled his voice from YouTube, fabricated some comments, which he had never made, and it sounded exactly like his own voice. So please note the point that's being made here is that we are living in such a kind of, futuristic world that ethics is becoming more important than ever before. AI is beginning to have a presence in education. An IBM report cites one example of the intelligent tutoring system. These systems use AI techniques to simulate one-on-one human tutoring. They are able to provide timely feedback, all without the presence of a human teacher. AI, in particular, machine learning, helps to analyze and summarize the discussions in online courses so that a human teacher can guide the students towards more fruitful collaboration. Once they pick out, these students are talking about this and this group is talking about this, the machine will tell the tutor how to direct those different groups with similar interests together. So AI-enabled systems can group students with similar interests and at a similar cognitive level. Now let me give you a popular example of this that you know about, is a virtual teaching assistant at the Georgia Institute of Technology in the US. Her name is Jill Watson, and she was deployed in 4 courses, of the same type, but her name was changed to Stacy Cisco, Liz Duncan, etc. But she wasn't really a human being, she was a chatbot. This chatbot named Jill Watson offered personalized assistance to learners in an online course in computer science by using text. And nobody knew, people gave her very high rating, at the end of the course, thinking it's a human tutor. And it's only after the course was over that they realized that she was a chatbot. Now, Professor Goyal, who ran this course in Georgia Tech, analyzed data from the 4 different offerings of the course, and he concluded that in specific domains, like such as technology and topics, it would not be possible for humans to tell the difference between the responses of a chatbot or a human expert. So look at the world we are moving towards. Now, AI-powered systems can be deployed as robots with human-like speech. According to Anthony Seldon, who is a Vice Chancellor of Buckingham University, he says that robots will replace teachers in the next 10 years. I don't know how seriously we should take this prediction, but what he's saying is that the role of teacher will change from becoming, a provider of knowledge or a facilitator to an overseer. And what will the teacher do? Monitor the progress of learners, lead non-academic activities, and provide pastoral support. Sounds reasonable enough. Another example of AI in education is the intelligent textbook. And it's already here. Inquire is an iPad app that combines a popular biology textbook with an AI system that answers questions about the content. This was part of a research project at Stanford University. Assessment has been a challenge for many teachers. According to Professor Rose Luckin at the University College London, the stop and test assignments, which we are doing right now, do not rigorously evaluate a student's understanding of a topic. AI-based assessment constantly provides feedback to learners, teachers, and parents about how the students learn, the support they need, and the progress they are making towards their learning goals. So this, I think, we need on a top priority, because this will help us to assess our students and take them towards success. Now we come to the next point, which is about augmented reality and virtual reality technologies have great potential to improve learner experience. VR, or virtual reality, can immerse the learner in a simulated experience, while augmented reality can alter one's current perception of the real world environment through visuals or sound. Both AR and VR have a major presence already in the mobile world. So you know already where the direction is going on mobile devices. The leadership of these technologies is entirely with the commercial systems, and the costs at the moment are very high. Some institutions have established labs for students to experience AR and VR, but these are so far available only in well-resourced urban centers. What about learners in remote rural areas? Are we talking about bigger digital divides? What about issues of equity? I went to one of these AR, VR labs in Shanghai, and it was wonderful. You know, you could wear this device and it was almost as if you are in a house which is going up in flames, and it's trying to teach you how to actually deal with that situation. You feel as if you are really in it. But this is in Shanghai. What about people in remote areas? They still don't have this facility. And I was watching, you know, in class, 3 children in the UK are writing code and developing those flying, what are they called? Drones. Of course, the drone crashed after the first flight, but at least it flew. Now, when will our children, you know, in remote areas have those facilities to be able to come up with those types of inventions? So another concern with these devices, you know, when you write algorithms, is how far these devices contribute to learning. A recent report from the House of Lords in the UK draws our attention to the potential negative impact of AI on society, culture, and the economy. If AI services are built with our bias, that bias, for example, an ethnic bias, this can pervade the system with dangerous consequences. You know, that's why you hear about racial profiling in the US, you know, when only black people are targeted for certain kinds of checks and so on. So such a bias can undermine educational efforts if it's not noted and corrected at the design stage. So I think when we get into this field, we'll have to be careful about our biases and use lots of other people to give feedback so that that bias doesn't get introduced into our programs. In addition to education, the most critical impact of AI is on work itself. Nearly every expert estimates that the nature of work would be drastically transformed. Whole professions could disappear. Jobs that do not yet exist might become mainstream in a short time. Middle-level jobs are most likely to disappear, while we may see a marginal increase in highly skilled jobs. For example, today the UK is saying that if somebody has AI skills, please give them a fast-track visa and bring them into the country. We need such expertise. But on the other hand, you know, legal assistants, because AI can do the job of, you know, going through hundreds and thousands of cases and coming up with the correct legal advice, which human beings can't, their jobs will disappear. So all the cognitive type of repetitive jobs will be better done by robots, and therefore those are likely to disappear. And that's why human beings need to skill in areas where only humans can contribute and nobody else. So how does this education sector prepare learners for these types of things which are happening very quickly? In this scenario, learners will need to skill and reskill themselves. Learners will need to move back and forth from academia to employment. Today they leave the university, go and start doing some work. They'll need to be reskilled, come back to the university and go back to employment. This will give rise to the network of multiversities. Micro qualifications, micro credentials will be as important as degrees, because they don't need to do the degree again. They'll just need a micro credential for the new skill which they have learned. The faculty will also have to become lifelong learners to keep pace with these changes, and the focus will be on acquiring knowledge and skills in the new modes of delivery and pedagogy. So within these uncertainties, how can we equip learners to deal with the future? 3 essential literacies have been proposed by Joseph Aoun. First, the human literacy. Prepare students to perform jobs that only human beings can do. Human literacy will help them to make ethical choices, equip them for social engagement through effective communication. All learners must have adequate exposure to humanities and liberal arts. And in the US, in the medical schools, they are already bringing great literature as part of the curriculum, because they want the doctors to learn the skill of empathy. How does the human mind work? How do they have to deal with human beings? So they are bringing, great literature which deals with in depth with human characters. So I think things are already moving in that direction. Data literacy is again very essential in a world, everything is data driven now. Learners must be able to find meaning in the flood of information around us. How do you pick up the wheat from the chaff? That's the question. And we have to teach our learners to be able to do that. Technological literacy is the third literacy which is essential if we are to understand machines and their uses. We don't have to go under the bonnet, but we should know exactly what machines are capable of, how we as educators can use them. Learners must be able to deploy software and hardware in order to maximize their powers to achieve and to create. Finally, let us look ahead and reimagine learning in the area of digital transformation. Learning how to learn will be the biggest skill that we can give to our learners. But learning also presupposes the learner. So who is this learner that we are talking about? In the 1980s, the new learner was the adult who looked for education and training for personal development, promotion or change in career, or enhanced job requirements. So this was mostly the adult that we used to call the new learner. You are too young to remember that, but we remember. At the turn of the century, because this is who you are, this gave rise to the digital natives who are very technology savvy learners, usually young school leavers entering the higher education system. That's you. And today the learner in higher education is one who has the technological means to learn. You have all kinds of devices, is well motivated, self-regulated, with analytical and collaborative abilities to perform well.